Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ladies Room Talk Show. I'm Clarissa Kenty, your Kingdom Concierge. I am elated about today. It's been a beautiful, beautiful day. And of course, if you're watching the news, hey, that temperature is really going to drop this week. So it's going to be a little bit chillier than today. I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, I think it's going to start off. The lows is going to be in the 30s. I think 30 or 31. So dress appropriately. Grab those boots, those scarves, the skull caps, whatever you need to do to stay warm, because the temperature is going to drop. So stay safe out there, guys, and definitely take care of yourselves. A lot of people dealing with sinuses and all that stuff. I just think it's just a change of weather. So you want to make sure that you are doing everything that you need to do to stay healthy. So remember, the temperature is going to drop tonight, tomorrow morning, and Wednesday. And I think it's going to jump back up on Thursday and Friday and into the weekend. So it's going to be great football weather. Want to give a big shout out to my guest on last week, Paulette Roby. Listen, Paulette is an amazing activist for Birmingham, and she is a big advocate for the foot soldiers who marched in the civil rights movement in Birmingham. And so they had a really nice event on last week, and she was on the show and talked about that. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul. And it was a beautiful event, just really giving honor to the foot soldiers, and one in particular. He did a lot for the Birmingham area, and the family was awarded an honor for everything that he did in that movement. And again, just giving a big shout out to all of the foot soldiers who played their part in making sure that the movement continued and is continuing today. A lot of them shed their blood. A lot of them lost their lives during that movement as well. And it's something that's not really talked about very often are those foot soldiers. And those foot soldiers was that's that younger crew that was out there and very vigilant, and going out and being a part of the movement as well. So again, we want to thank Paulette Roby for coming in and being a part of the show and sharing a great wealth of information that we just did not know. Today, the Ladies Room had an opportunity to hang out with the Birmingham City Chief the chief of police. He really has a great initiative. I had an opportunity to meet him. That was my first time meeting the chief. Excellent, wonderful guy. They have this initiative called Push for the Cure. This is something that's annual. It takes place every single year in October in honor of breast cancer awareness. From what I understand, there's several police officers, females, who have lost their lives within the last couple of years to breast cancer. And so this was something that he started, he initiated, and he is continuing to do that. It was really great to see. He had a driver and someone in the passenger side, and then he had about 3 to 4 survivors, breast cancer survivors, who were in the backseat of the car. And he got behind that cruiser and pushed that cruiser a couple of a ways up there on the road. So it was really great. Big kudos to the Birmingham City Police Department and your efforts. And I continue to pray for those who have lost their lives there due to breast cancer, who were on the force. Like I said before, it was a really good initiative. I wish more people would have been in attendance, because it really was a great program. So tonight, guys, want you to go ahead and share this post. Share it, send it out, because I have an amazing guest all the way from Chicago. She's in the house, y'all. Miss Brandi Collins-Dexter. She wrote an amazing book that, guys, I'm going to let her give you the intro on that book. That book is powerful. I had an opportunity to skim through it, and she really have some great chapters that she's touching on, and you don't want to miss this. So go ahead. If you're watching right now, go ahead, share this live into your story so that people can pick it up in the feed. So I will bring to the ladies' room for the first time, and hopefully not her last, Brandy. Hey, lady.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I've been excited. I think I've been waiting for a month to get you on into the rotation, because we try to schedule our shows maybe about a month out. So I have been excited about this. I have been waiting about this, talking about your book, because people need to hear about that book. But before we do, Brandy, tell the people about you, what you're all about, what your background is all about, because I know inquiring minds want to.
Yeah. So, my name is Brandi Collins-Dexter. I'm currently the Associate Director of Research at the Tech and Social Change Project at the Harvard, housed in the Harvard Kennedy School. And so a lot of the work that I do is around race and technology, and particularly stuff around media, and how different groups like consume media, how we protect media, how do we protect our stories, all of these kind of things. And so, like, I'm a lawyer by trade, and got my start in Chicago doing a lot of policy work, supporting people with criminal records. And one of the things that kept coming up for me was that you could remove the policies, you could try to change the ways in which people do business, but if you don't shift the culture or the perceptions that people have of certain communities, and particularly of Black folks, then people will find loopholes, and they'll find a way to not employ people in our community, and a number of different things. So that made me really interested in media and journalism, and thus began a long work that I've been doing for over a decade at this point. And before I went to Harvard, I was actually senior campaign director at Color of Change, one of the largest racial justice organizations in the country, doing work around media, technology, and economic justice. So yeah, it's been like this long, kind of windy road to get me here, but here I am.
Here you are, and we're excited about that. The things that you share here tonight is extensive experience and things that you have uh, laid your footprint on, if you will. And so I'm excited about you taking on such a big journey. Some people would run from things like that and be a little afraid to step into that path, but because of you doing so, you're freeing other people to be their authentic selves. And so I like what you're doing. I love your book. It's a dare to be in your face book, in my opinion. It's telling the truth. It's being realistic, and it's just putting it out there. And so, and the book, that book, that title, I'd like to know, how did you come up with that title? Because it grabs your attention.
Yes, that was the point. It was clickbait. So the book title, Black Skinhead: Reflections in Blackness in Our Political Future, comes from two places. One, Black Skinhead, song by Kanye West, who's kind of like almost this ghost figure in my book. I tackle him in a couple of the essays. It's a collection of essays.
Mhm.
But the song Black Skinhead in particular, I think, is this really iconoclastic song speaking to a certain amount of like Black disillusionment and disappointment with systems. At least that's how I interpret it. And so that felt like a good way to describe some of the people that I'm talking about in my book, which is specifically Black voters tend to be under the age of 45, that feel dissatisfied with status quo politics, that have critiques of the Democratic Party, and are now breaking off from the left to the right and looking to alternatives. And so that's the kind of primary focus. But also, skinhead comes from a subculture, a 1960s subculture in UK, which was like the first multicultural subculture there, and it was like white and Black working class teenagers that had gathered around reggae music, Black music, soul music, and had built like, a set of code and aesthetics and all of this stuff. And as kind of economic austerity set in, you saw the movement get divided. And you see now today, when we talk about skinheads, we tend to think of like white nationalists, and that's part of that fracturing of communities. So that's something else I was playing around with that as well.
I love it. When I look at some of the titles of your chapter, I was like, okay, and to kind of see how those things connect. I love how you kind of give us an overview with your dad and your relationship with him. I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Tell me, how did you come up with the titles for the chapters in your book?
Yeah. So I mean, I think a part of it is a little bit of almost like you're writing an essay and you have a placeholder for it, and then you never fully come back to like changing the title later. But with me, with the book, so it's a political book. It talks about it's a look at modern Black politics and culture. It's about the loss of space and place, and through these series of essays, really looking at where some of the disillusionment sets in. And it draws from my own life, as you mentioned, my relationship to my family and things that I learned, interviews with Black voters between the ages of 18 and 108 of all different political identities. And so a lot of the titles, I have like one essay that's called Black People Love Me and Other Things You Shouldn't Assume About Black Voters, which, kind of really dives in to the diversity of Black people as political, figures and voters in our different ideologies, and how a lot of white, particularly mainstream media places, have this idea that Black people are like in lockstep, capital D Democratic voters. We all think the same way. We all believe the same thing. And, all of those kind of things. So it's kind of critiquing and picking that apart. And I think I'm trying to think of what are some of the other titles, but really I wanted to write a book that got into some really hard, at times even painful topics and truths, but it doesn't always have to feel that way. Like, I think with us as Black people, like one of the things that we can be good at is, even in the darkest of times, we find humor and we find community in each other, and you find yourself kind of like laughing at some of the most absurd things. And so that's part of like those titles. It's like that dark humor and folk storytelling that I think is traditional to Black communities.
I like that. Usually I kind of stay away from dark humor, depending depending on what it is. But I thought that the book was very tasteful in how you brought it out, and even though it was in a storytelling type format, it was very informative, and a lot of things that people just don't know, and it's conversations that people just don't have. I don't know if I don't remember or not, and I may have overlooked if it's in there. Did you talk any about how I can't remember how many years that there's still there has to be a vote for African American people to vote? Did you touch on that at all in your book?
No, I mean, I actually didn't, which is like, such a good point. I focus a lot more on the organizing mechanisms that have driven the Black vote. And so the ways in which churches and businesses and Black-owned media have played a role. And, Black people didn't just like roll out of bed and decide in 90% to vote for the Democratic Party, right? There had to be some organizing, some consensus building. And so I get into that, but that is such a great point. This idea that like every few years we just have to assume that Congress is, is going to like reaffirm our right to vote, and that the Supreme Court isn't going to like blow that up. And, how has that been going for us?
Mm-hmm. So, and my question to you, and it may be putting you on the spot, Brandy, but, how would one get rid of that?
So, I mean, I think that Congress could pass something that didn't have to be renewed every so often. Like, I don't think, there's we could make changes to the Constitution, like make a constitutional amendment or something like that, that then would, crystallize that right in a way that it doesn't have to be up for debate. I think that would probably be the best way. I think part of the challenge that we're dealing with right now, as we know, is there's a lot of political polarization, and there's a lot of people that have a vested interest in us not having a voice. I mean, you talked about, as I got on, the foot soldiers and the history in Alabama, and like some of the things that we went through that people don't know about or that we don't talk about for a number of different reasons. And I think one of the things that we've seen is, even though Black people have been like built this country, like the idea of the American dream and all of the benefits that can hold is in part due to like our labor, our imagination, our innovation. And yet we still have to debate whether or not we have a place in this country. And I think there's something so, disturbing about that. But yeah, exactly as Regina said, amend the Constitution.
So when do we get started? How do we do that? Why has that not happened yet? You know, is it we the people? Is it the squeaky wheel gets the attention? Is it the, how does that work? For me, I just don't understand why it has not been already. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know if they've tried it, and if not, what needs to take place, because that does not make sense to me.
yeah.
If
I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead. Mhm.
No, I think there's definitely been attempts. There's been work around that. There's a lot of institutions that have long fought for that. What will it take? I don't know. I mean, I mean, I think it takes strong leaders in that position, in Congress to get enough votes to, make that amendment. I think, it will take bipartisanship. I think both sides of the aisle would have to be bought into the idea,
Mhm.
um, that we should that our right to vote should be, validated through a constitutional amendment. So I mean, I think and right now, frankly, we have some people who are more interested in voter suppression mechanisms and denying our right to vote. So like it's a long windy road to that one, girl. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, I always think about it, and it really hits when it's time for this big election in Georgia. And
Mhm,
so there are a lot of people that just don't want Stacey to get in. And so, there was an uproar. She flipped that whole state. And so that the voter suppression is bigger now than ever before, because certainly they don't want that to happen again. So, it's just kind of, I don't know. I have my own thoughts, and
yeah.
I probably won't share them on the
Say
show.
more. No, no, no. Say more. Say more.
But I mean, it's just it makes no it just not makes sense to me that you continue to have to vote on something like that, and all it takes is the majority of the people to say, I think this time, nah.
Mm,
That's all it takes. And so I think we just need to be a little bit more mindful and vigilant in what's taking place, and see what we can do to make a difference.
mhm,
So that those are my thoughts on that. But
mhm,
I a lot of the things that you touch on, you talk about women, and in your book, and it's one topic I think we talked offline on this, and I wanted to talk about it tonight. When when we read an article about young Black women who are having some challenges in predominantly white institutions.
mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about that if we can, Brandy, briefly. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think is contributing to that problem?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of things that contribute to that, that I cover in the book. But I was thinking about this the other day, um, about how fortunate I was to grow up. I certainly, like in elementary school and high school, went to, places that were like predominantly white or disproportionately white. We're in classes that were disproportionately white. But one thing I can say about my family and our friends, and my god sister Kristen's on here, so she can attest to this. Like, when you came home, you were around Black people. You saw Black people at all levels. Doing all sorts of jobs. You saw like a wide variation of Black beauty. We saw ourselves in the future, in this idea that we could be anything, and that and I think sometimes when we go into these white spaces, or when we have predominantly white owned media systems or businesses, and we've lost so many of our own, or we've lost funding for so many of our own and resourcing, it often means that the stories and narratives that are told about us are not told by us, and they don't always see our humanity in that. And what we're taught in education and through curriculum is not necessarily about the kind of like Ida B. Wells, for example, or like some of the other figures that we could look to in history, but we're presented with these um, figures that don't look like us. And I think in part because of that, and also the way in which the internet can be this
Mhm.
extremely like, toxic dark mirror space. Like I was trying to imagine what it would have been like for me growing
Mhm.
up as a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, and going on to Twitter or Facebook and, constantly having to see a number of things, constantly have to be exposed to bullying or harassment or videos of our own deaths playing over and over again. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of that, plays into how, unfortunately, young Black women and girls do see themselves. And the other thing I'll say is that I talk about in the book, so suicide rates are actually going up across the board with younger Black people, and the age of suicide attempts are dropping. And one would think that maybe over COVID that there would have been like increases across populations, but no, like the white population was stable and suicide attempts went up particularly strongly amongst, I believe, Black and maybe Latino groups, but I think Black groups were the highest. So when you see that and you see our kids kind of, dying from deaths of despair, I think that really speaks to something lacking with our structures, and we need to be paying closer attention.
What are some of the things you think we could do to help our young girls? What additional resources do you think would be out there? Counseling, life coaching, small groups. What do you think may be something that could help?
I mean, I think we need all the things. We need everything we got right now. I mean, and it has such a far range. I mean, one, for example, policy, I would like to uplift that I know a lot of particularly Black women have been organizing around is the Crown Act. And that's, the ability to wear our hair any way that we want to wear it in the workplace. I mean, that's one of those little things that lead to microaggressions and a number of other things when we're told that we can't even wear our natural hair. We can't even, wear braids, and you have, kids getting suspended from school for coming to school with dreads or, all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's policies like that can be passed. I think, like you said, some more spaces for resilience and healing, I think are important. We really need to, um, you know, force government and corporations and other entities to really invest in the preservation of Black media, independently owned and controlled Black media, so we can tell our own stories. And the diversity of that, I think, is really important. We need to be all up in these school board races and making sure that these people running and winning on, quote unquote, banning critical race theory and all of these things, which are just power play to strip us of our knowledge of our history, that like we're pushing back against those and naming, what that is. So, I mean, I think there's accountability to be had in all of those different places and spaces. And I think we all, as older women, have, I'm not saying like old women, but like, women that are not girls anymore, I think have a stake in ensuring that we are creating those safe spaces for our girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that just in talking to some girls, they have some, a few self-esteem issues, how they look, their posturing, just, the overall essence of who they are as young girls. And, just to kind of reiterate, who you are, whose you are, how God made you, everything that makes up who you are is a contribution to the earth and how it contributes to the earth. I don't know. It just kind of hurts me, a little bit, because that, of course, was one of the things that I never really dealt with at that age. And so just trying to know now what we need to do, what we can do to rally around our young girls, to just kind of be that support for them. I do know that counseling is on the rise. I do know life coaching is on the rise as well. And so, especially as they're going out into the schools and those who maybe grow up in a predominantly white school system, and then, they go to maybe an HBCU, that is also a form of culture shock, if you will, just on the opposite end. And then, of course, when you have those kids who go to a predominantly Black school for high school and elementary school, and they go to a predominantly white school, a university or college, then, of course, that's another transition that can tend to be a bit taxing for our young people. And so, and a lot of times we don't think about that, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed, especially as they're juniors and seniors in high school, what can we do to put that resource together to show them how they can transition from culture to culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. So I write a little bit in the book about this, not fully. So I have a couple essays on essentially Black feminism, and one of them is called, "Feminism for Black Girls Who Are Stop Caring About What You Think," and it
Mm,
talks about me going to a women's college and watching the live performance of For Colored Girls, and like talking about. Um, our mother's feminism and what works for us, and the whole is feminism for white women, not for us, and but also embracing that aspect of, I found God in myself, I loved her fiercely, and that kind of level of community building and resilience, that like nobody's got us like we got us. That's
mhm,
just what it is. And so we do have to create those spaces for ourselves, because it's very easy for us to step into imposter syndrome, or it's easy for us to play into this idea that everybody wants us to save their behinds. They want us to show up to the polls and do what we're supposed to do. They want us to do all this and do all of that, and then when the chips are down, if we don't do what people expect us to do, we get knocked off our pedestal, that temporary pedestal we get
mhm,
on, or we don't have the resilience that we need to survive. So what does it mean to truly take on that charge of self-care, community care, and not just pay, lip service to that, but
mhm.
truly, understand that through our spirituality, through our workplace, and through our like sort of personal development.
Right. And sometimes people will take that as being racist or discriminatory in that nature, but it's not. We are African American people, and so we have to be able to be okay with being that. And some people aren't, but be okay with being an African American. Acknowledge the fact that you are African American, and then be okay with the dialogue around it. There are certain disparities by being a woman, number one, and then being
Hmm.
an African American woman, number two. And so those are things that are obvious, they're there, but how do we combat that? Because if you are female and you're Caucasian, there's still somewhat a discriminatory uh, environment there, but not a double
Hmm.
discriminatory thing. And so it hits a little bit differently. Now, am I saying that that's something that our young girls should allow to be a stumbling block and that's your excuse? Not at all. But what I am saying that the obvious is there. How do we combat the obvious? And so I think that you've laid that out very well in your book. I think that you've brought out a lot of information as it relates to that. And I really want people to go out and get this book. This book is a really, really, really good book. It's a great read. It's not very big or thick at all. And it's interesting. I mean, it really is interesting. And so I'm one of those. I have the ebook, but Brandy's going to send me the hard copy or the
Yes.
paperback because I love to flip. I'm kind of old school when it comes to that. So I love flipping and highlighting. I am a book person. I love to read books. And so I'm looking forward to just really diving into that. Brandy, do you have some form of a workbook to go with this? Or is this a book that you're looking to push into certain school systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think warning, it is at times explicit. There is some, cursing in it. So I think, down the line, if the book is successful, I would love to. I've seen people, kind of like Abram Kendi made like a children's how to be an anti-racist, like, trying to do something like that would be great. It is already in a number of college libraries and curriculums, so I think that's important. One thing I want to say, we could talk about this later, but an offer I'd like to give as well is, if anybody, if any of your viewers reshare this on social media and tag you or me in it, I'd love to send a copy of book to them too, because I do want to try to get this book into as many hands as possible, because I do think it is, extremely important in some of the issues in it. But yeah, anyone doing like book clubs, and you want to invite me in and you want to tell me what you do or don't like about it, I'm down for that. Like,
Oh, that's
wherever.
pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's going to be great. So, guys, you heard it. Brandy said if you share it, is it share this live and then tag you on it?
Yep. Or tag you and you can let me know.
Okay. So you can tag either one of us. So, guys, you're listening right now. Go ahead and take this live and share it. When you share it, put my name or Brandy's name on there. Brandi Collins-Dexter. I think that's how her name is on Facebook. And so you can tag either one of us. If you tag me, I'll send that information over to Brandy so she can get it. And she's going to send you a copy of her book. Guys, you don't want to be without this book. You don't want to be without it.
Also say this as an addendum, and maybe you can put it in the notes. So I've done a lot of organizing against Facebook, and I haven't been on there in a while, but I am on Twitter at Brandy and Brandy. I can share my handles, but yeah, that's why I'm like, if they tag you, you can let me know. But yeah, I want to get this book in front of as many, particularly Black women and Black people, journalists, people that are concerned with issues of justice and concerned with issues of community. I want you, to read it. So, yep.
Wonderful, guys. There you have it. Share this post. Share it. Tag me. Share it. Tag me. Share it. Tag me. You tag me, I'll get that information to Brandy so she can get it and get that book to you guys. It's definitely something you want in your repertoire. My godmother is on tonight, and she is a bookworm as well. So I know she'll be getting the book from you, Brandy. So guys, you see the website there. Go out there and I know she said that she'll, send you one, but I certainly would like for us to support her and what she's doing, because she's doing a great thing. And the book is really a great read. So go out there, share the post, get it out there to all of your network of friends. They need to get this book in their hands. Brandy, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. This has been amazing. I know you're super duper busy, but I'm glad that you're able to make time to come out. I am giving you a virtual key to the ladies' room. So whenever you like to just drop by, use your key and come on in.
I've like, can I just say it before you go? All day I've had stuck in my head, we got a meeting in the ladies' room. I can't sing, but like I've had that stuck in my head all day. So I'm very excited about this.
Yes, I love it. And Brandy, let me ask you this, and this is what I like to ask all of my my guests who come in. If you can, leave some words of encouragement, maybe primarily to our young girls who are experiencing identity issues, self-confidence, our girls who are just dealing in emotional disparities. What kind of words can you leave, or words for inspiration can you leave for our listening audience here tonight?
I will say that it's not always going to be easy. You're not always going to see, the beauty in yourself or the possibility in yourself. You're going to make mistakes, all of these things. But there's opportunity for you out there. And there's a lot of us out there that want to be with you and want to like help you get to that opportunity. So look to us, reach out your hand to us. We got you, and we can do this.
I love it. And the final words were, we can do this. We can do this together, guys. Teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork means together everyone achieves more. So let's reach out to Brandy, get connected with her. Go out there to her Twitter handle and Instagram. I think you're on Instagram as well.
Yes,
LinkedIn.
Brandy.
Yes. Let's get connected, guys. Let's see what she has going on. Let's see what she has coming down the pipeline. Maybe she's going to come to Birmingham one day and speak, and we can go and support Brandy when she comes to speak, or maybe a neighboring city, Atlanta, or some of those areas.
Yep. 100%. And if you get a book and so moved, please leave a review on Amazon or anywhere, because all of that helps. Thank you.
All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us inside the Ladies Room Talk Show. And remember, we'll be back next Monday, 7:00 p.m. right here inside the Ladies Room. And also look out for a clip I did do to get some footage for the Push for the Cure today. And so I will be sending that out and putting that out on social media. So look out for that, guys. It's a beautiful interview with the police chief, and then also getting some footage of him actually pushing the car. So that was pretty cool too. So guys, we'll see you later on next week. Listen, be safe this week. Stay warm. Stay warm. Echinacea, elderberry, zinc, vitamin C, all of that good stuff. Take it, because we're going to need it. It's going to be cold this week. All right, guys. Love you guys. Stay the course and be safe.